Chapter 4, Señor. Tokyo, Japan. On a chilly winter afternoon, Peter Katsuyori was opening a bottle of Smirnoff to enjoy with little wedges of lemon, when a pop-up window caught his attention from the reflection of his monitor on the stained glass door. It was another encrypted message from Yūrei containing details of his flight to the Cebu Islands, Philippines. The instruction was to fly to Cebu, rendezvous with an asset, head towards Talisari, and await further instructions. Peter Katsuyori had a lot of pleasant visits to the Philippines, but for some reason, he wasn't eager for this trip, but he had to comply. Yūrei insisted. On Sunday, January 17, 1999, on board Philippine Airlines, he arrived at the Mactan Cebu International Airport, MCIA, at around 9 a.m. At the arrival lobby, Peter met up with his asset, who held up a piece of cardboard with his name written on it. He introduced himself as Randy Talisic and offered to carry Peter's travel bag before calling a taxi cab. Randy was your typical gum-chewing Filipino teenager who was naturally hospitable, respectful, and wacky. From the airport, they went straight to Talisari City, and during the trip, Randy noticed that Peter had the habit of holding onto his wallet. Worried about his safety as a tourist, he felt it was his duty to remind Peter to secure his wallet at all times. He added that the environment at the slums could be very rough, with a lot of pickpockets roaming around. Taking notice of the word slums. "You must be kidding me. No one told me about going to the slum area," Peter said, surprised. Baffled by the way Peter was reacting, Randy tried to explain that he was just following instructions from his mother, to pick him up from the airport and take him straight to their house where he would be staying. Amid the lack of clarity over what was happening, Peter stayed calm and asked for his mother's name instead. "My mother's name is Leonora Talisic." Confused for the merest fraction of a second, Peter chose not to mention any more details with regards to his reason for coming, seeing that Randy himself was oblivious on a different level. Thoughts of bailing out were going through his mind, but he decided to go for it and see what happens. Noticing the sudden worsening of traffic, Peter inquired, "Why are there so many people on the streets? Is there a festival going on?" "Today marks the official start of the Grand Sinyalog Parade," Randy replied. "Oh my! Is there an alternative route?" "This is the alternative route." "Okay, so how long do you think we'll be stuck here in traffic?" "I'm not so sure. Perhaps 2 to 3 hours, depending on how fast the parade moves." "Oh my God," Peter exclaimed. "Today is not a good day to travel." "That's correct unless you want to join the parade." While listening to one of the nearby radio stations for traffic updates, the taxi driver turned to Randy and suggested that they get down from there because the traffic wasn't going to improve. And after seeing that the majority of the commuters were getting out of the vehicle to walk, they eventually agreed to do the same, despite the 8.5 kilometers hike to Osmeña Boulevard. And with Peter's Samsonite hard-shell luggage dragged by Randy, they hiked from AS Fortuna Street, all the way to Osmeña Boulevard, mindful of the long journey ahead of them. And after 2.5 hours of an excruciating stroll, they eventually arrived at Osmeña, where they were able to hitch a lift to their destination. And just like in a Mardi Gras, people were all getting drunk and dancing on the streets with painted faces shouting "Pit Señor," which was a short form of Sang Pit sa Señor, meaning to call, ask, and plead to the king. People were drinking everywhere, and in each house that they passed, a sumptuous meal awaited guests. At one point, with Peter attracting attention as a foreigner, they were nabbed by a group of ladies drinking tuba, coconut wine. To avoid offending anyone because he was just a traveling tourist to an unknown place, he humbly accepted the offer. The tuba had the taste and the strong smell of natural fermentation, which was sweet-tasting. They said that it was best to drink during the day when it was fresh, for coconut wine got stronger during the night. Soon, however, their few introductory shots would turn into 4 gallons. Overwhelmed by the warmth of their host's reception, Peter might have underestimated the level of alcohol he was drinking, consuming more than he could handle. The Grand Sinyalog Festival was an annual event celebrating the country's most famous historical relic, the Santo Niño de Cebu. Held on the third Sunday of January, this festival caused severe traffic conditions with millions of people going out on the streets. Waking up to the sound of talking voices, he looked around and saw people around him with paper plates eating while he slumbered on the floor. Wobbly, disoriented, and embarrassed, he slowly stood up, making an apology to all of the guests. He started to ask where Randy was, but nobody seemed to know. Instead, he was just given a paper plate and invited to get food from the table that was just beside him. A huge lesson, spit-roasted pig, in its golden brown crisp glory was at the center of the table, an apple thrust in its mouth. Surrounding this delectable centerpiece were different native delicacies meticulously arranged, none less conspicuous and inviting than the other offerings. Peter had a sumptuous meal while enjoying the company of the people around him, right until Randy and his mother arrived with a handful of groceries. "Ohei gozaimasu," a woman said, holding a basket of vegetables. "Hello, you know Japanese?" "Yes, I do. I worked in Japan for 6 years as a Japayuki when I was 16. I'm Randy's mother, Leonora, but you can call me Nora," she said. "Oh, thank God, we finally met." Peter reached out to shake hands. "I'm so glad to meet you, but wait, you mentioned that you worked in Japan when you were 16? How could you have possibly worked there at that age?" Peter asked with a baffled look, and with a toasted laugh, she replied, "My recruiter from Japan helped me falsify my papers." Okay. Good for you. At that moment, Peter felt mesmerized by her natural beauty and pleasing personality, and it was very apparent in the way that he acted. "You're very pretty," Peter said nervously, while Leonora's cheeks blushed. "You want to take me to Japan?" "Ha ha ha," Peter laughed. Very well aware that his thoughts were deceiving him, Peter was confused as to whether to take action, share his feelings, or hold them back. Looking for the right opportunity for him to speak to her in private, he approached Leonora while she was washing dishes in the kitchen. Peter leaned against the kitchen sink beside her, facing the other way, folding both arms across his chest. "Nora." "Yes, dear." Leonora answered with conviction. "Is there anything I can do for you?" Pausing to clear his throat. "I've been wanting to ask you about the reason why I'm here." "You don't know why you're here?" "Not really. I was only told to meet with you and wait for further instructions." "Who told you that I was coming?" "Your friend, the lawyer." "Give me one moment." Reaching into the pocket of her duster dress, she took out a mini coin purse, fished out a piece of paper, and handed it to Peter. Looking at the slip of paper, Peter's face suddenly fell into frustration. "It says Miyamoto Musasha," Peter said. "That is what he said his name was. He said that he is your friend and even gave me 200,000 pesos to cover for all of your expenses." "But, have you not inquired from him regarding my purpose in coming here? Surely you must have sensed something unusual, with him giving you 200,000 pesos in cash. That's an awful lot of money." Uncertain how she would answer the question, Leonora started to feel uneasy. "Yes, I have given it serious thought. That is why I chose not to ask questions. We are very poor, and 200,000 pesos is hard to come by." "Is there a problem?" Leonora asked. Seeing that his host was beginning to worry, he tried to explain who Miyamoto Musasha was. The real Miyamoto Musasha is Japan's greatest samurai, who can use 2 swords simultaneously. He is a national hero in all of Japan. Reaching out to his bag, Peter Katsuyori took out a book and handed it to Leonora. "Here, look at this, the Book of 5 Rings, and look at the author. It says Miyamoto Musasha. He's the author of this book." "So it's a big lie?" Leonora asked. Are you going back to Japan? Do you want me to go? Peter asked. No, I want you to be a father to my son, Leonora said, laughing. Despite being a billionaire, Peter Katsuyori is a very down-to-earth man, but in the circumstance of having ended up in the slums, his tolerance and sociability are unequal, without a doubt. Randy's concern for him had gradually faded with the sincere grin plastered on his lips. It seems that you and my mother are getting along very well. Oh yeah, she's a really sweet woman. What does she do? She's a retired prostitute, replied Randy, shocking Peter. What? Are you serious? Yes, but that was a long time ago. Okay, but you shouldn't be poking into your mother's life like that. Sorry, I just wanted to be honest after seeing how you looked at my mum. Oh no. Please don't think about it that way. What way are you talking about? Randy asked with a prolonged Dutchan smile. You're hopeless, Peter said, laughing. By the way, where's your father? Asked Peter, returning his attention, but Randy was still smiling. Take that grin off your lips, I'm asking you a serious question. I have no idea who my father is, but we still get support from him to this day. Wait, what? He's still alive, and you haven't seen him. My mother said he is a good man, and that's all I need to know. However, if he comes to me one day, I think I will welcome him. That's the spirit. Your mother raised you well, Peter said, patting Randy on the shoulder.